And I think that that is really important, whatever you do, to, you know, being an artist or not. I think it's really important to always like stay outside of your comfort zone, to not get comfortable. You gotta keep challenging yourself all the time, or otherwise you stagnate. And then I think as soon as you stagnate, that's when you shrink a little bit, and then your confidence starts to wane. It's hard to give advice because it's so individual, but I think it's and the thing is, it doesn't work out for everyone, you know. So it's like, and sometimes you see people that stick around too long too, and don't explore other options of what they can do in life.
Yeah, fair.
But I think the most important thing is that your goals are right, that you're not preoccupied with the idea of becoming famous, or becoming successful. Those have to be results of you falling in love with the profession and becoming excellent at your profession, at the craft, and following the signs that lead you to becoming better at the craft, better at the profession, and then the career will come. So I think, you know, of course you gotta like work hard and be disciplined, and you know, those are core tenets of you know, and you got to find ways to build confidence, because it's tricky. It's a really tricky profession to come up in, because in the beginning you're going to get so much rejection. I mean, you get more rejection as an actor, especially early on, than any other person. You know, you get more rejection in a couple of months than most people get in a lifetime. You know, so you have to have a constitution that can deal with that and look at the bigger picture, and you know see the small victories of it, and you know what the learning process is, and sort of stay cocky. You got to kind of keep telling yourself, you know, that you're the man, or woman. If there's two mistakes that I see, is that people sort of have the wrong goals, so they're trying to get to the result. Their aim is just the result. And I think for being successful and having a long-term career, and also attracting the right kind of people to want to work with you, is to like really fall in love with the craft, learn the history of the craft, study the masters, and gravitate towards, pursue projects and things that will help you build that, you know, that will help you build the craft and get better at that. And then the other stuff will follow. The second part is, when you get a shot, be fucking prepared. Don't let anything, there's no excuses. And I see it, I've seen it a lot on, when I've on shows, and people come in and then they have, you know, one scene or a couple of scenes, and they might be in the middle of their careers and never made it, you know, it never clicked in for them, or they're in the beginning, but you see them and you see like people holding these white pages on the day, you know, the sides. And I'm like, dude, those aren't for you. Those are for the crew.
Yeah.
You should know your lines inside out, because it's the one thing you can control. Like, it's the one thing you can control. Okay, there are exceptions when people get the role the day before, you know, and that's really difficult. And or they get the sides the day before. Some productions are so stupid with that kind of thing that they don't. But it's the one thing that you can, if you can control it, then you need to control it, because you don't know if the director's going to be an asshole, if the other cast members are going to be arrogant. You don't know what the vibe is going to be, and you don't know how much time you're going to get. You know, it's the hardest thing you can do as an actor, is come in and just have one scene in a show where everyone knows each other and you're not one of the main characters, and you have like a few lines and you got to shine, and you're the part that they're going to come to last. And they got all the principal actors, all the main players, and then they're like, all right, and we got to get this, okay, perform. And then all of a sudden you haven't been on set for 2 months, or, you know, 6 months or whatever, and then you have 2 takes and you got to get it right there. And then if you haven't like if you don't know your lines inside out, outside in, how are you going to find a way to relax? It's so hard as it is. So it's the one thing that I see that people just underestimate how well they need to be prepared and how many nights they got to sleep on the dialogue. Like you got to work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep. That's when it like really sinks into your memory. And so if you haven't slept 4 nights on dialogue, like slept 4 times, then you don't know it. When I start working on a role, I'm hyper aware of where my intuition and my imagination takes me in terms of how I want to prepare for this role and what I want to do. So, you know, hopefully each character will have its own process. But then there's some things that I kind of always do. I almost always start with the tension of the person. Where physically does that tension lie? And that leads me to, how does this person walk? And when I found the tension and the walk of the person, it gives me an idea of how that person looks at other people, if it's confident, if it's hiding, or you know, so usually like the tension and the way that you look at other people and the way that you walk, it's going to affect the way that you talk. So I usually I start kind of outside, working my way in.
Interesting.
And I don't always stick with the first idea, but it gives me a starting point.
To play a character that in many ways disliked. I had no respect for his choices, and to find his vulnerability and to understand where he came from when he made the choices that he did. I think that's probably one of my strengths as an actor, that as a person, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I've always looked upon this quality in other people as a sign of strength. I think you can measure the strength of a human being from how vulnerable they dare to be.
The first 4 years, I would throw up every time before I went on stage. Every time. As soon as I heard the audience murmur, that was my trigger. And I had this whole setup of, I had like a bucket set aside and I'd have to go throw up, you know. And then as soon as I got on stage, it'd be fine. But it was like that lead up. It induced this panic in me, and it forced me to throw up. And then actually, then there was another psychosis that got added to it, where I started to like blacking out. I was doing this thing in front of the whole school, and I wasn't prepared enough, and I just could not get a hold of what it was I was going to say, and all of a sudden I was in this black void, and everyone was looking at me, and it was this story that we were telling there was 3 parts of the story, and we were 3 actors, 3 students that were telling each part, and I was the middle part. So if I didn't tell my story, and I was the only one that knew my story, if I didn't tell my story, then the next person couldn't move it along. In real time, it probably was 2 minutes. It felt like 2 days. And after that, I had, it's funny, this is actually one of like the pivotal moments for me in my development as a professional. So after that, I was in a really dark place. It was like the humiliation of that moment was so dark, and I felt like maybe I just don't have the constitution to do this. If I'm throwing up every time before I get on stage, now I'm blacking out. I'm getting a panic attacks on stage. Like maybe it's my body telling me like I'm not made to do this. And then like really embarrassing. Where the show didn't go on. It's, that kind of really. And for me, finding acting was the first time in my life where I felt that I had a potential to do something meaningful, and I hadn't found anything before that where I felt even remotely good at. So I just felt pretty lost in life and just didn't have a direction or a path in anything. I was just kind of hustling and working in restaurants and construction and trying to make money for the day, and then when I found acting, it was like my whole life opened up, and all of a sudden I had a direction and a path, and I was, I felt like I was a person for the first time. I felt like I had a direction. So when these sort of nervous breakdowns started to occur, I was starting to think that maybe I just don't have the constitution, like the physical abilities to do this, and that was such a devastating thought, that it was it was impossible for me to imagine to have to give up. There was nothing else, it was just a dark hole underneath me. And so then I got into this. I was looking at these as sort of like demons that I had, these voices that it was like working against me, and every time I was trying to challenge myself in some way, they would like cripple me. And so then, but I was so afraid of the idea of giving up because there was nothing else. So then somehow I found this courage to think that, but what is the worst thing that these voices, like these demons, could face? What is the worst thing I could do to them? And then I realized like it would be to do a difficult monologue on stage. That's what was most terrifying, and that my knees just like grew weak just thinking of that idea. But then I think the fear of giving up was so much worse, so I just went for it. And it was fortunate because I had just had this really bad like panic attack situation in school, and then the next thing we had was this was our own project. We had a month to do our own thing, and everyone else kind of took it as a break. There were 4 or 5 people that just did one scene for a month, and I did this really difficult play called Howie The Rookie. It's actually a 2-part monologue. It ended up being about 90 minutes long, and I mean really high difficulty degree, and I ended up creating like 16 different characters that all had a different body and a different voice.
Wow.
And I just dove into that like an obsessed person, and 9 days into it, I knew it by heart. Because I was like literally doing it day and night. It was like my whole world. I just engulfed myself into this. I just did not stop working. I was like literally like an insane person. And I showed it to some people after maybe 2.5 weeks. And after 3 weeks, I started playing it in front of audiences. And then, we had sort of a premiere or whatever for the school after a month. And then I got some professional people looking at it. The National Theatre ended up picking it up, so I started playing it professionally while I was into school.
Yeah.
So I never stumbled on a word. I didn't have like a hesitation on it, and that like moment became my like core tenet, the foundation of my confidence after. And I found a way to sort of I found a way to challenge my fears, and if there was one thing that sort of separated me from some of the other very talented people that I grew up with in the acting community in Sweden, and a lot of them are doing great, but I think if there was one thing that maybe gave me the confidence to aim higher was this. And there were so many things that kind of came to me after that would have felt like really scary challenges that I maybe would have, found a way to avoid, now felt easy, and I just jumped to it. And so I was sort of in that mindset when I came out of acting school that I could do anything. And and it was a pretty like steady upward trajectory. Like it, but it's also, you know, it's very much how you view it. You know, I
Mhm.
had I had a lot of roles. There was a bunch of big things in Sweden that I didn't get. I was really close to getting, but I didn't. And I think it's, you know, when you're in the chasing game, you really have to, you know, you also, it's really important to have this sort of like professional athlete psychology of, you know, getting over losses really quick and just keep
Mhm.
working.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I didn't really have that sort of, I kept raising the bar for myself all the time. I wasn't really like thinking about um, moving into an international career at all. For me, the pinnacle of success was to be like a theater actor in Sweden and one of the actors that got to do films every now and then. That was the stratosphere I wanted to get to, and that was my dream. But then I ended up getting there really quick, like right when I finished school.
Yeah.
So it kind of forced me to raise the bars of my goal.